All right, so today I'm here with Jim Toscano, and we're going to talk about Jim's very fine book, Filling in the Grooves. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So tell us, why did you write this book? With so many drum books in the market, what's different and why did you write this one?
I was asking myself that question along the way. But basically, I do a lot of teaching, and I kind of felt that in the marketplace, there's a tremendous amount of really quality groove books. You look at Tommy Igoe's Groove Essentials 1 and 2, Stanton Moore's Groove Alchemy. There's just great stuff on grooves. All the stuff by Zorro and Daniel Glass now with Zorro. There's all these wonderful books on groove, but I felt like there was kind of a hole in the marketplace when it came to fill books. And I felt that, you know, as I was collecting fills for my students and writing material to teach, that it would make sense to keep growing that collection and then eventually publish it into a book.
What what kind of styles does it cover?
So there's definitely a lot of rock in the book because I come from a strong rock background. But I did jump into some things that I felt along the way don't seem to be covered in fill books, and I thought that if I could just for instance like have some blues fills written out so that someone in a practical setting could say, okay, I have a blues gig. I kind of feel like I never know what to play for fills. I would get that from students a lot. So I was like, well, let's put in some things that I like to play in my stuff. So for instance, there's a play along for shuffles, for blues. And the opening fill is this, and it kicks into a shuffle. So we have like a so just some things that I felt were practical uses, little transitional fills, just so that people would have kind of a guide, right? So when they have a blues gig, they'll know what to play. I did lots of like little short fills, and some of them we all know, real famous, Pat Boone, Debbie Boone, right? So I tried to put in some functional things and approaching figures. There's some great swing stuff in there. And this is all stuff that, as they come up in my teaching practice, I had to fill that void, right, for my students and for myself. I mean, it helped me polish up my playing.
So it really sounds like, it's a real practical book that, it's not one of these kind of theoretical books with, fills using a numbering system and variations, but stuff that people can really use for gigs, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. And, I would say that it has a few elements in there where it's more of exercises. There's a few of those, but for the most part, it's mostly practical stuff.
Right.
So there's one page in particular that I was thinking of before where it is sort of numbers and stuff, but there are things that I play in my playing, and I felt like, well, I should share that. And at least if someone, like for instance, some cross rhythmic kind of things, and they're oddball kind of fills that I like to use myself, but sort of things like this where it's maybe things that are little groups of 5, little groups of 7.
Great. So play that one again. Just count us off so we see where the one is.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2 and 4, 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4. So like I'm counting 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Little groups of 5, or maybe 7, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. 1E and a 2E and a that kind of stuff. So yeah, so all like that whole page is a 16th note grid that just happens to be all cross rhythmic, 3s, 5s, 7s, good fun stuff.
And how about coming back to some of the rock stuff? Did you think about specific players, or do you think about songs when you were doing this? How did your, sit?
For sure. I mean, as a kid, I was definitely influenced by Bonham. Even, later on, I got into fusion guys, but as a kid, you know, sort of growing up, listening to just rock and roll records, Ringo Starr, John Bonham, and I did some tribute pages to the gentleman, and you know, even I wanted to kind of approach, you know, my first recording session that I ever did, the producer, who was Leo Adamian at the time, who
Yeah.
played drums on If You Like Pina Coladas. And he said to me, he was like, you know, I love your stuff, your original things. He goes, but, you know, don't lose sight of that. But just remember to keep the really simple things up in the forefront. So I wrote a lot of pages that sort of answer what you have to play on a gig, you know, and he said that his favorite fill of mine was this. And it floored me as a kid because I wanted to do stuff. But he was like, I love it when you go just 3/8 notes. And 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 1, and just the little drags in between. And it, you know, it kind of taught me something right then in that moment. And I was like, man, I really have to instill that in my students, that thing is going to be used more than a whole bunch of flash and, you know, crazy fills. So
Absolutely. Those are the money fills, you know.
money fills, yeah.
Like Motown, you know, you hear those all over those old, you know, especially, you know, R&B records, and you know, you hear that all over the place.
Yeah. And, you know, and some of the pages, you know, I kind of came up with these motifs. So I'll address a rudiment. And so I came up with these silly names like chronic phlemosis and know your diddles. And there's one called Deep Sixth, and it's 6-stroke roll fills. And the opening one is, you know, 6-stroke version of the Motown fill. So I open that page with, because everybody should know that one. And the second one, but then, you know, I put in some offset things with that, you know, coming in a beat later, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, right? So putting it a beat later, displacing. So, but I, you know, I hope that it's practical and that people find things that they can use, and that teachers find it to be an easy system to teach. Because at the beginning of each page, I give a little muscle memory, 4 muscle memory exercises. So, you know, if I'll just have a student do those for a week, just work on the muscle memory. So it might be something like this, which maybe they're not used to, playing 1E and, you know, snare hat, because I have a page called linear fills. So I'll have them work on, which is an open, it's not crossed, it's open-handed. And so they work on that one. Then the next one is bass hat snare. So they'll just work on going to get that motion down before they put it into the fills in the practical use. And then maybe the fill is this. That kind of stuff. So, you know, I try to keep it in a system where you're not intimidated by the fills. You get to work on these little tiny muscle memory exercises, and then you start to branch into the work that's in there.
Yeah, you got, you know, it's a great book. It's really well laid out, very clear. Tell us about, you know, a little bit more about the audio, and is there some video?
Oh yeah. So there's audio tracks for most of the material in the book. You know, it was a huge task because I did everything by myself. I engraved it. I recorded all the audio. I recorded all the videos here in my studio. And so there's about 300 and change videos in the book. There's about 500 audio examples. And so I really had to learn how to edit video quick. But the video examples, basically what I would do is I would play the muscle memory exercises first, and then I would play each fill slow and then in time with a groove, sort of in a setting. So like there's a page called Lucky 7, so it's 7/8 fills. So it has this groove. So one of the fills would be just 1 and 2 and 3 and, okay, or the second part of the subdivision. So it would be 1 and 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I would have that just played slowly and then in time with the groove. So that's the way the video is set up. And then the audio is just each audio example. And there's play-alongs.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds, I mean, it's such a well put together package. You know, the audio is smoking, you know, great grooves, you know, to play along with, and I mean tunes rather. And you know, I think you hit it out of the park with this one. So I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah,
Jim
appreciate it.
Toscano's Filling in the Grooves book. It's we call it the Encyclopedia of Fills.
Awesome.
Yeah, check it out. And thanks again, Jim. We'll see you soon.
All right, very good. Thank you.